The Knights of the Cross by Henryk Sienkiewicz. Share this video with friends if you liked it. Chapter 11. During this time, Zbyszko was entirely forgotten. Who in the time of such sorrow and misfortune could remember about the noble lad or about his imprisonment in the tower of the castle? Zbyszko had heard, however, from the guards about the queen's illness. He had heard the noise of the people around the castle. When he heard their weeping and the tolling of the bells, he threw himself on his knees, and having forgotten about his own lot, began to mourn the death of the worshipped lady. It seemed to him that with her something died within him, and that after her death there was nothing worth living for in this world. The echo of the funeral, the church bells, the processional songs, and the lamenting of the crowd was heard for several weeks. During that time he grew gloomier, lost his appetite, could not sleep, and walked in his underground cell like a wild beast in a cage. He suffered in solitude. There were often days during which the jailer did not bring him food nor water. So much was everybody engaged with the queen's funeral, that after her death nobody came to see him, neither the princess, nor Danusia, nor Pawala of Tczew, nor the merchant Amalej. Zbyszko thought with bitterness that as soon as Mako left the city, everybody forgot about him. Sometimes he thought that perhaps the law would forget about him also, and that he would putrefy in the prison till death. Then he prayed for death. Finally, when after the queen's funeral 1 month passed and the second commenced, he began to doubt if Mako would ever return. Mako had promised to ride quickly and not to spare his horse. Marienburg was not at the other end of the world. One could reach it and return in 12 weeks, especially if one were in haste. But perhaps he has not hurried, thought Zbyszko bitterly. Perhaps he has found some woman whom he will gladly conduct to Bogdaniec and beget his own progeny while I must wait here centuries for God's mercy. Finally he lost all trace of time and ceased altogether to talk with the jailer. Only by the spider web thickly covering the iron grating of the window did he know that fall was near at hand. Whole hours he sat on his bed, his elbows resting on his knees, his fingers in his long hair. Half dreaming and stiff, he did not raise his head, even when the warden bringing him food spoke to him. But at last one day the bolts of the door creaked, and a familiar voice called him from the threshold. "Zbyszko! Uncle!" exclaimed Zbyszko, rushing from the bed. Mako seized him in his arms and began to kiss his fair head. Grief, bitterness, and loneliness had so filled the heart of the youth that he began to cry on his uncle's breast like a little child. "I thought you would never come back," said he, sobbing. "That came near being true," answered Mako. Now Zbyszko raised his head and, having looked at him, exclaimed, "What was the matter with you?" He looked with amazement at the emaciated and pallid face of the old warrior, at his bent figure and his gray hair. "What was the matter with you?" he repeated. Mako sat on the bed and for a while breathed heavily. "What was the matter?" said he finally. "Hardly had I passed the frontier before the Germans whom I met in the forest wounded me with a crossbow. Raubritters, you know, I cannot breathe. God sent me help, otherwise you would not see me here." "Who rescued you?" "Jurand of Spykow," answered Mako. There was a moment of silence. "They attacked me, but half a day later he attacked them, and hardly half of them escaped. He took me with him to the Grodek and then to Spykow. I fought with death for 3 weeks. God did not let me die, and although I am not well yet, I have returned." "Then you have not been in Malborg? On what would I ride? They robbed me of everything, and they took the letter with the other things. I returned to ask Princess Zimovitowa for another, but I have not met her yet, and whether I will see her or not I do not know. I must prepare for the other world." Having said this, he spit on the palm of his hand and, stretching it towards Zbyszko, showed him blood on it, saying, "Do you see?" After a while he added, "It must be God's will." They were both silent for a time under the burden of their gloomy thoughts. Then Zbyszko said, "Then you spit blood continually?" "How can I help it? There is a spearhead half a span long between my ribs. You would spit also. I was a little better before I left Jurand of Spykow, but now I am very tired because the way was long and I hastened." Why did you hasten?" "Because I wished to see Princess Alexandra and get another letter from her." Jurand of Spykow said, "Go and bring the letter to Spykow." I have a few Germans imprisoned here. I will free one of them if he promise upon his knightly word to carry the letter to the Glandmaster. For vengeance for his wife's death, he always keeps several German captives and listens joyfully when they moan and their chains rattle. He is a man full of hatred, understand? I understand. But I wonder that you did not recover the lost letter if Durand captured those who attacked you. He did not capture all of them. 5 or 6 escaped. Such is our lot. How did they attack you? From ambush? From behind such thick bushes that one could see nothing. I was riding without armor because the merchants told me that the country was safe and it was warm. Who was at the head of the robbers? A Krzyżak? Not a friar, but a German. Szelminchik of Lentz, famous for his robberies on the highway. What became of him? Durand chained him, but he has in his dungeons 2 noblemen, Mazurs, whom he wishes to exchange for himself. There was a moment of silence. Dear Jesus, Zbyszko said finally, Liechtenstein is alive, and also that robber from Lentz, but we must perish without vengeance. They will behead me, and you will not be able to live through the winter. Bah, I will not live even until winter. If I could only help you in some way to escape. Have you seen anybody here? I went to see the Castellan of Krakow. When I learned that Liechtenstein had departed, I thought perhaps the Castellan would be less severe. Then Liechtenstein went away. Immediately after the Queen's death, he went to Marienburg. I went to see the Castellan, but he answered me thus, They will execute your nephew, not to please Liechtenstein, but because that is his sentence. It will make no difference whether Liechtenstein be here or not. Even if he die, nothing will be changed. The law is according to justice and not like a jacket, which you can turn inside out. The king can show clemency, but no one else. And where is the king? After the funeral he went to Rus. Well, then there is no hope at all. No. The Castellan said still further, I pity him because the Princess Anna begs for his pardon, but I cannot. Then Princess Anna is still here? May God reward her. She is a good lady. She is still here because Durandowna is sick, and the princess loves her as her own child. For God's sake, then Danusia is sick. What is the matter with her? I don't know. The princess says that somebody has thrown a spell over her. I am sure it is Liechtenstein. Nobody else, only Liechtenstein, a dog brother. It may be he, but what can you do to him? Nothing. That is why they all seem to have forgotten me here. She was sick. Having said this, Zbyszko began to walk up and down the room. Finally he seized Mako's hand, kissed it, and said, May God reward you for everything. If you die, I will be the cause of your death. Before you get any worse, you must do one thing more. Go to the Castellan and beg him to release me, on my knightly word, for 12 weeks. After that time I will return, and they may behead me. But it must not be that we both die without vengeance. You know. I will go to Marienburg and immediately send a challenge to Liechtenstein. It cannot be otherwise. One of us must die. Mako began to rub his forehead. I will go, but will the Castellan permit? I will give my knightly word. For 12 weeks, I do not need more. No use to talk. 12 weeks, and if you are wounded you cannot return. What will they think then? I will return if I have to crawl, but don't be afraid. In the meanwhile the king may return and one will be able to beseech him for clemency. That is true, answered Mako, but after a while he added, The Castellan also told me this. On account of the queen's death we forgot about your nephew, but now his sentence must be executed. Edge he will permit, answered Zbyszko hopefully. He knows that a nobleman will keep his word, and it is just the same to him whether they behead me now or after St. Michael's Day. Ha! I will go today. You better go to Amelie today and rest a while. He will bandage your wound, and tomorrow you can go to the Castellan. Well, with God then. With God. They hugged each other, and Mako turned toward the door, but he stopped on the threshold and frowned as if he remembered something unpleasant. Bah, but you do not yet wear the girdle of a knight. Liechtenstein will tell you that he will not fight with you. What can you do then? Zbyszko was filled with sorrow, but only for a moment. Then he said, How is it during war? Is it necessary that a knight choose only knights? War is war. A single combat is quite different. True, but wait. You must find some way. Well, there is a way. Prince Janusz will dub me a knight. If the princess and Danusia ask him, he will do it. In the meantime, I will fight in Mazovsha with the son of Mikolai of Dlugolas. What for? Because Mikolai, the same who is with the princess and whom they call Obuch, called Danusia, bush. Mako looked at him in amazement. Zbyszko, wishing to explain better about what had occurred, said further, I cannot forgive that, but I cannot fight with Mikolai, because he must be nearly 80 years old. To this Mako said, Listen, it is a pity that you should lose your head, but there will not be a great loss of brains, because you are stupid like a goat. Why are you angry? Mako did not answer, but started to leave. Zbyszko sprang toward him and said, How is Danusia? Is she well yet? Don't be angry for a trifle. You have been absent so long. Again he bent toward the old man, who shrugged his shoulders and said mildly, Jurandowna is well, only they will not let her go out of her room yet. Goodbye. Zbyszko remained alone, but he felt as if he had been regenerated. He rejoiced to think that he might be allowed to live 3 months more. He could go to remote lands. He could find Liechtenstein and engage in deadly combat with him. Even the thought about that filled him with joy. He would be fortunate to be able to ride a horse, even for 12 weeks, to be able to fight and not perish without vengeance. And then, let happen what would happen, it would be a long time anyhow. The king might return and forgive him, war might break out, and the Castellan himself, when he saw the victor of the proud Liechtenstein, might say, Go now into the woods and the fields. Therefore a great hope entered his heart. He did not think that they would refuse to grant him those 3 months. He thought that perhaps they would grant him more. The old Pan of tension would never admit that a nobleman could not keep his word. Therefore, when Mako came to the prison the next day toward evening, Zbyszko, who could hardly sit quiet, sprang toward him and asked, Granted? Mako sat on the truckle bed because he could not stand on account of his feebleness. For a while he breathed heavily and finally said, The Castellan said, If you wish to divide your land or attend to your household, then I will release your nephew for a week or 2 on his knightly word, but for no longer. Zbyszko was so much surprised that for a while he could not say a word. For 2 weeks, asked he finally, but I could not even reach the frontier in 2 weeks. How is it? You did not tell the Castellan why I wished to go to Marienburg. Not only I, but the Princess Anna begged for you. And what then? What? The old man told her that he did not want your head, and that he pitied you. If I could find, said he, some law in his favor, or only a pretext, I would release him altogether, but I cannot. There would be no order in a country in which the people shut their eyes to the law and acted according to friendship. I will not do it. Even if it were Toporczyk, who is a relative of mine, or even my own brother, I would not. Such hard people are here. And he said still further, We do not care about the Knights of the Cross, but we cannot bring reproach on ourselves. What would they think of us and all our guests, coming from all parts of the world, if I release a nobleman sentenced to death, in order to give him a chance to fight? Would they believe that he will be punished and that there is some law in our country? I prefer to order one head cut off than to bring contempt on the king and the kingdom. The princess told him that was strange justice, from which even a king's relative could not obtain anything by her prayer. But the old man answered, The king may use clemency, but he will not tolerate lawlessness. Then they began to quarrel because the princess grew very angry. Then said she, Don't keep him in the prison. And the Castellan replied to this, Very well, tomorrow I will order a scaffold built on the market square. Then they departed. Only the Lord Jesus can help you. There was a long moment of silence. What? He said gloomily. Then it will be immediately? In 2 or 3 days. There is no help. I have done what I could. I fell at the Castellan's knees. I implored him for mercy, but he repeated, Find a law or a pretext. But what can I find? I went to see the Ksiądz Stanislav of Skarbimirz, and I begged him to come to you. At least you will have this honor, that the same priest who heard the Queen's confession will hear yours. But I did not find him home. He had gone to Princess Anna. Perhaps for Danusia. Not at all. The girl is better. I will go see him tomorrow early in the morning. They say that if he bears one's confession, salvation is as sure as if you had it in your pocket. Zbyszko put his elbows on his knees and dropped his head so that his hair covered his face entirely. The old man looked at him a long time and finally began to call him softly. Zbyszku, Zbyszku. The boy raised his head. His face had an expression of anger and of cold hatred, but not of weakness. What? Listen carefully. Perhaps I have found a way of escape. Having said this, he approached and began to whisper. Have you heard about Prince Witold, who at one time, being imprisoned by our king in Kryło, went out from the prison disguised in a woman's dress? There is no woman who will remain here instead of you, but take my kubrak. Take my cowl and go, understand? They will not notice. It is dark behind the door. They will not flash a light into your eyes. They saw me yesterday going out, but they did not look at me closely. Be quiet and listen. They will find me here tomorrow. And what then? Will they cut my head off? That will be no satisfaction, because I will die anyhow in 3 or 4 weeks. And you, as soon as you are out of here, to horse and go straight to Prince Witold. You will present yourself to him. You will bow before him. He will receive you, and you will be as safe with him as if you were sitting at God's right hand. They say here that the Kniaz armies have been defeated by the Tartars, because the late queen prophesied defeat. If it be true, the Kniaz will need soldiers, and he will welcome you. You must remain with him, because there is no better service in the world. If our king were defeated in a war, it would be his end. But there is such an amount of shrewdness in Kniaz Witold that after a defeat he grows still more powerful. And he is liberal also, and he loves our family. Tell him everything that happened. Tell him that you wanted to go with him against the Tartars, but you could not because you were imprisoned in the tower. If God permit, he will give you some land and peasants. He will dub you a knight, and he will intercede for you with the king. He is a good protector. You will see. What? Zbyszko listened silently, and Mako, as if he was excited by his own words, spoke further. You must not perish young, but return to Bogdaniec. And when you return, you must immediately take a wife so that our family does not perish. Only when you have children may you challenge Liechtenstein to fight until death. But before that, you must abstain from seeking vengeance. Take my kubrak now. Take my cowl and go, in God's name. Having said this, Mako stood up and began to undress, but Zbyszko arose also, stopped him and said, I will not do it, so help me God and Holy Cross. Why? Asked Mako, astonished. Because I will not. Mako became pale with anger. I wish you had never been born. You told the Castellan, said Zbyszko, that you would give your head in exchange for mine. How do you know that? The Pan of Tachev told me. What of it? What of it? The Castellan told you that disgrace would fall on me and on all my family. Would it not be a still greater disgrace if I escaped from here and left you to the vengeance of the law? What vengeance? What can the law do to me when I must die just the same? Have common sense, for God's mercy. May God punish me if I abandon you now when you are old and sick. Shame! There was silence. One could only hear the heavy, hoarse breathing of Mako and the archer's calls. Listen, Mako said, finally, in broken tones. It was not shameful for Kniaz Witold to escape from Kryło. It would not be for you, either. Hey, answered Zbyszko with sadness. You know, Kniaz Witold is a great Kniaz. He received a crown from the king's hand, also riches and dominion. But I, a poor nobleman, have only my honor. After a while he exclaimed in a sudden burst of anger, Then you do not understand that I love you, and that I will not give your head instead of mine? At this, Mako stood on his trembling feet, stretched out his hands, and although the nature of the people of those days was hard, as if forged of iron, he cried suddenly in a heartbroken voice, Zbyszku!
Remember to subscribe.